I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Think of your home. How does it feel coming back to your bed after a long day? Remember how it feels to be in your room on a hot sunny day. Imagine a rainy day. Picture your surroundings. What is your roof and walls made of? Think of the things that comfort you in these days of isolation. What things about your home make you feel happy? What things make you feel safe? You can open your eyes now. I ask you to remember those feelings as I tell you the next story. When I was 15 years old and living back in Colombia, I signed up to volunteer at Techo, a big organization that provides provisional shelters to communities in states of extreme poverty. Working there to build houses, I learned that not everyone can afford a safe house to come home to. Techo assigned me to a home in the poorest suburbs of Bogota, owned by Don Carlos, a farmer with a family of 6 who had fled their home and fertile lands due to the violence of a 50-year-old civil war. They had arrived in the big city, hoping to find a brighter future. When I first saw where they had to live, I was shocked. The roof and walls were made of pieces of plastic, wood and metal, held together by wires and nails. The floor, where they slept, was the bare ground, with the exception of just a few tarps and blankets. Their home was in need of urgent repair, leaving them at the mercy of the wind and the rain. Feeling unsafe at home is something that I had never had to consider in my life. It is impossible to fully understand a situation unless you live it. I watched. As the first drops of water fell, the family ran to save their few belongings, picking them up off the floor and carrying them in their hands as the rain came down harder. Before we knew it, we were all standing in ankle-deep water. That same rain that once meant prosperity and good crops was the very reason they would be sleeping wet that night. It was in that moment of helplessness that I really understood what it must mean to not have a safe home. It is impossible for these people to thrive in these living conditions. So we worked hard to build their new home. And when it was completed, there was much joy, gratitude, and celebration. But then, when I arrived home, I realized, even though 120 families now had a new house, there were still thousands more that had not been so lucky. Fast forward to 2018. I am in Bali starting a new life. Most of you that were here that summer will remember the Lombok earthquake that hit on the night of August 5th. Houses were destroyed, people became homeless overnight, and I couldn't help but think of what those families must have felt. Thinking back on my time in Colombia, I wanted to help in any way possible. So I started doing some research. Did you guys know that in the past 5 years, there have been more than 12,000 natural disasters in Indonesia? From which the Lombok earthquake and its aftershocks alone affected more than 200,000 houses? Even though Indonesia receives help from many NGOs, and the government has improved its efforts over the years, it is just not enough. Some of the people I interviewed from Lombok said that most of the aid was given to urban communities, missing most of the rural areas, which are the ones with the least resources. I reached out to a local community member in Lombok, Sandika, who was in charge of supporting local projects in these communities. He told me that it took them 3 months to receive the concrete needed to build new houses, time during which these families lacked proper housing. In fact, even today, there are still families that are still in refugee camps and improvised shelters. Concrete in Lombok is considered one of the strongest and most reliable materials to construct with, despite its tendency to crack when the earth moves. However, as Charlie Moore, an Australian construction manager based in Lombok, told me, there is a lack of local knowledge regarding concrete mixed ratios, which often results in buildings being even weaker against earthquakes. As my research progressed, I began to identify the need for new building solutions. I wanted to come up with a more effective way to support the most vulnerable communities. So I decided to design a reliable, inexpensive, fast, and easily constructed house using local materials. Why local materials? Because I wanted the communities to be able to construct their own house without the need of external help. Luckily, at Green School, we're surrounded by bamboo experts. So I started my journey by signing up to my first bamboo workshop. There, I learned about all the different possibilities that bamboo offers. I was so inspired and excited that I went on to assist on future workshops and internships to further familiarize myself with bamboo design. Throughout this time, I explored different designs through trial and error. And this is when I was inspired by something from my home country, Colombia. To my excitement, I remember an ancestral technique called barreque. The barreque method is a raw earth technique consisting of applying by hand a mixture of soil and vegetal fibers to a wooden or bamboo truss. I customized my design by using what is available: mud, sand, and paddy straw. Bringing these two techniques together, bamboo construction and barreque panels as walls, I was able to create a low-tech structure, balancing efficiency, practicality, and aesthetics. This is how it went about. As you can see, I used a lot of geometric shapes in my design to give it a strong structure and a more modern and appealing look. The house is raised on stilts, giving a protection against floods and humidity, two important factors to bear in mind during the rainy seasons. The modular design can be adapted to different family sizes. It can also be expanded for community needs, such as schools, hospitals, and even refugee camps. Overall, it is a sustainable design that uses local materials, creates minimum construction waste, and doesn't require major transport, which reduces the carbon footprint, while saving money and time. Throughout the process of perfecting my design, I met with Dr. Ron Harris, founder of In Harm's Way, a nonprofit organization that supports community-based relief organizations in disaster-prone areas. He made me realize the importance of resilience and self-reliance, and how recovery and rehabilitation comes from empowering the communities, giving them the skills for long-term solutions. He emphasized on the fact that mitigation is 7 times cheaper than rebuilding. So I asked myself, why don't organizations spend more of their resources and efforts on disaster mitigation then? The Lombok earthquake set many people and organizations into immediate response mode, with most of their resources going towards short-term relief, exposing that it's not possible for any organization to support a community sustainably over time. At the end of the day, the community has to be able to respond for itself. Given that self-sufficiency was central to my project, it became important for me to include disaster prevention aspects in my project. So my project started evolving before my eyes. I was inspired and excited, looking forward for the next step, going to Lombok and building the first home with Sandika's community, and sharing the knowledge I had gathered on disaster prevention. My trip was planned and ready. But then, COVID-19 happened. Everything changed overnight. I was devastated. I didn't know how my project could possibly have credibility if I didn't go to Lombok. But the longer I reflected, it became clear to me how now, more than ever, empowering and promoting self-reliant projects in these communities would be vital on the event of a natural disaster. Think about it. How is anyone supposed to help these people if travel is banned, social distancing is law, and most countries are having economic crisis, struggling to handle their own situation? I kept thinking, how much time before there's another earthquake in Lombok? Which NGOs or organizations could possibly come to their help now? I refused to give up, so I turned to my most reliable friend, the internet. I started transforming my project into a fully digital manual. Building a future, how to prevent and recover from natural disasters. It includes disaster prevention information, such as safety drills, like the Tsunami 2020-20 evacuation principle, and the official Indonesian and tips from the official Indonesian Disaster Management Organization. It has the entire process of construction, from treating bamboo all the way to installing water recollection systems and dry toilets in my house. I also included information on reliable and unreliable materials to construct with in disaster-prone areas. With this manual, I plan to provide lasting support that will benefit these communities in the short and the long run. Once this manual is finished and translated, I plan to share it with in as many ways as possible. I will leave one at Greenstone to be used for service trips and any relief efforts needed in Bali. I will send it to Sandika in Lombok, who will share it with the communities in need. Dr. Ron Harris is also willing to add the manual in his organization's webpage that reaches thousands of people in need of help. I invite you to close your eyes one more time. Coronavirus news is everywhere. You're told to isolate at home. But this time, you're part of the 150 million people that are homeless worldwide. You have nowhere to go, nowhere to be safe. You're afraid for yours and your family's health. Now, open your eyes. Self-isolation during a worldwide crisis is a privilege. Not everyone has the option to stay safe at home. Service work, as we know it, is no longer effective, sustainable, or even possible. We need more ideas to support and empower the most vulnerable communities, even if it's from a distance. One of the many things that this current pandemic has taught me is that everything is interconnected, and a better world is a world in which everyone has a proper roof. Thank you.